Turn now to our next panelist, Dr. Chris Days, practicing doctor who, as a junior doctor in the NHS, raised concerns about understaffing and patient safety and found himself in an extremely lengthy court battle to assert his whistleblowing rights. He brought a successful case in the Court of Appeal that essentially changed the law and granted junior doctors rights. Some aspects of litigation are still ongoing, which shows how whistleblowing can have life-changing effects. Chris is going to talk about the importance of extending the scope of whistleblowing protection and access to justice. It's my great privilege and honour to introduce Dr. Chris Day.
Thank you, Mukhtar. So why should we fix whistleblowing law? I think my case provides good illustrations of the various problems that occur when the public interest, the well-intentioned Public Interest Disclosure Act plays out in the employment tribunals of this country. So my case is a response to serious patient safety concerns I raised all the way back in 2014 as an intensive care unit doctor. I say these concerns are very serious and very verifiable and are linked to 2 deaths. And I also say it's very easy to check what I'm saying is correct. So my case is basically the response to that act of what I now know to be whistleblowing. Now, to really understand where this current legislation goes wrong, follow the money in my case. So let's start with what the taxpayer spent on it. Now that is somewhere between £700,000 and £1 million. And then my side of the litigation through crowdfunding has spent £390,000. Now that's nearly £1 million to lawyers. Now let's see what we all got for our money from the legal profession. So we didn't get a final judgment on the facts. We got damage to whistleblowing law in respect to all doctors below consultant grade in the country and large numbers of agency workers. The public got a forced public statement induced by cost threats that were later denied to the press and to MPs that basically said that I agreed the NHS acted in good faith. Now, you can probably sense from what I'm saying that I don't really believe that. So that's another outrageous thing that the public interest disclosure has facilitated. And I think the public deserve better than that from legislation that on its face is there to promote and protect people that say important things in the public interest, where it appears to not do that. And I'm not saying that it wasn't meant to do that and protect formerly public concern at work were trailblazers in the way that they put it onto the statute books. But there needs to be, which there is, from the great work that Protect are doing at the moment, an acceptance that the way the Public Interest Disclosure Act plays out is not in the public interest and often wastes huge amounts of money. And if you take my case as an example, even if you did want to cover up everything that I said about an intensive care unit in South East London, there's got to be cheaper ways to do it. And even from an economic point of view, that means the law needs to change. But we all know that when an intensive care unit doctor raises something important, it might be in everyone's interest to listen to what they say and maybe act on it, rather than spend £1 million attacking the individual, discrediting what I say are verifiable concerns, and then astonishingly undermining the law for all other doctors in the country. So I just wanted to focus on 3 of the tactics that have been used against me that I think come basically from the legislation, the current legislation, and they are seen as viable options for employers. So the first bit of the tactics against me was to attack the reasonableness of what I was saying about safety issues. It has now taken me 6 years to get my opponents to accept that my reasonable belief in cover-up and safety was reasonable. And that's astonishing in itself, that £700,000 has been used to make what a doctor says about something as important as intensive care seem unreasonable. The next thing is attacking me as a doctor and as a person. So that's more understandable if you're not a doctor. It's mudslinging. But it's very, very expensive mudslinging that the taxpayer funds to essentially confuse important issues about patient safety. And then the third tactic is attacking my employment status. We, with the assistance of a Telegraph journalist, have established that actually all that taxpayer money was used to mislead a court on the reality of how 54,000 doctors are employed in practice. Withheld from disclosure was a contract that showed exactly how these 54,000 doctors were employed. And then hundreds of thousands of pounds was spent arguing the opposite to what is plainly written in this contract and making it into an academic legal debate, which we essentially won in the Court of Appeal with the assistance of Protect, which is good in some ways, but we've since found out that the situation was rather more simple, and it was simply a contract hidden from disclosure. And that makes people far more uncomfortable, because I think it suits the establishment to represent what happened to us in the Court of Appeal as us winning an academic legal debate. But actually what we could have done is just disclose this contract back in 2014, and then I would have had my case heard back then, and all of this public money would have been saved. And I think that just illustrates why the law needs to change, because we can't have £1 million being spent every time a doctor says something uncomfortable. And I think those examples are something that I think Protect have really tried to remedy in their proposals, and that's about coverage, making employers less able to get out of being named and having to respond to the facts of the whistleblowing case. So Protect's proposals on coverage would hopefully make it not necessary for people like me, a doctor, and Judge Gillen to go through expensive litigation just to say that I have a right to be listened to and not be harmed saying something in the public interest. The other thing that I think is crucial in Protect's proposals are a new statutory body. Now, I would say that the rules are there, they're just not being followed. And not only that, there's this confidence in employers, and in particular the public sector, that they will never have to account for anything. They will play these legal games and more often than not will win, and the facts will never ever need to be responded to. Now, I think the proposal of a statutory body to actually enforce and regulate, even if they enforced and regulated the rules we already have, that would make a huge difference. And I would say that is what I'm most excited about in this new legislation. The fact that someone for once might have to follow a rule that's set out. So that's why the lawmakers among us, I think, something needs to be done, even if just for money. You can't have £1 million being spent on crushing doctors. It's a waste of money. And a new statutory body to enforce the rules we already have, or maybe new rules that are set out in Protect's proposal. I have overrun, so I better stop it there.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think we're developing a common theme, echoing the need for a change of cultures that Dame Margaret mentioned, that employers should investigate rather than attack or conceal. I don't know, Chris, whether if there was a duty on the trusts to investigate your concerns, do you think things would have panned out differently?
Well, there are actually, I mean, my view is we're not short of duties. I'm a regulated individual, and the people that deal with me are regulated individuals. We can kid ourselves if we think that it's a lack of duty. It's misconduct and people not being honest. And I think that's what Dame Margaret is saying. And I must say, hearing Dame Margaret makes me think that I've got off lightly as an NHS whistleblower, because I've not been put in prison, and no one's trying to, well, as far as I know, no one's trying to extradite me. But that's the issue, is I think in all of us, it's human nature. Someone says something we don't want to hear and we want to crush them. I think it's in all of us to be a whistleblower, and it's probably in all of us to crush one too. But the reason people do the crushing is because I think they can get away with it. And they're right. In the UK, you can quite easily get away with lying, crushing a whistleblower. And as you see, some of the, even arguing the nation's doctors out of whistleblowing protection by hiding a contract, which is potentially contempt of court, you can get away with. That's the problem. And that's the thing we have to deal with. Are we prepared to deal head on with people of power lying and committing misconduct? And now there is this culture that you can get away with it. So that's going to be a very brave MP to change that. And who wants to do that at the moment? They're not queuing up. But that's how I think you're going to solve this problem.
Well, Dame Margaret had a hand up, so that's very encouraging.
Yeah, but I imagine Dame Margaret would be interested. Do you feel supported, Dame Margaret, in your endeavours?
Well,
which I found very inspiring, to be honest.
You've got Kevin. Kevin and I work together on a lot of these tax justice issues. Do I feel? I mean, I don't want to get partisan on this, but I think there is a.
We're not allowed.
I don't want to get part, but it's very difficult when your prime minister and leader doesn't have a great respect for the laws either. And I'm not saying that, Kevin, I promise you, in a partisan way. I'm saying that in a person who just really cares about democracy way. But I think this issue about the threat to our democracy from corruption, for me, has gone beyond the financial service sector, which is where I focused a lot of my energy in the last 10 years, to other parts of our society. And it's really, really dangerous. We pretend that we hold our heads up high and that we're a very well-developed democracy. We believe in the rule of law and all that stuff. And you look at how gradually all those pillars of democracy are being undermined, whether it's parliament, whether it's the press, whether it's the courts, the judiciary, whether it's the rule of law, whether it's the civil service. And we are, I think, on a cusp of losing our moral integrity, I'm afraid. But I'm going to fight it. And I'm sure Kevin will be with me